Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network, a division of the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network. The following program broadcast is an original creation by the broadcast entity. Discussion within the following broadcast should be used for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation. Before considering application of any broadcast content in the following program, please consult your healthcare provider. If you feel you are having a medical emergency, please contact your local health services for immediate assistance. MS&Me Media and the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network do not guarantee or warrant the accuracy of information in the broadcast to follow. The Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network provisions broadcast services to program hosts. Information discussed in the broadcast does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or goals of the network and are solely those of the show broadcast host. Should you wish to host a broadcast, please visit our website at msmemedia.com and submit a request to become a program host. We thank you for listening to the MS&Me Radio Network. Enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Dan and Jennifer Digman, and welcome to another episode. It's our 7th episode of A Couple Takes on MS for MS&Me Radio Network. This is, again, Dan Digman.
Hi, this is Jennifer Digman.
And thank you for joining us today. And this is a very, it's a special week, special month for us. We are celebrating 12 years of marriage this month.
No, well, actually, we're celebrating 12 years when?
Is actually on September 10th is when our...
See how quickly my husband knew our anniversary. Good job, babe.
I think we had it written down on our notes. No, it's always 9/10/2005. Yes. And I think September is a huge month because it also marks the year, the month that we met. It was, what date was that then?
September 28th, 2002. So it'll be 15 years at the end of the month. And Dan and I remember these dates because A, they're important, but B, because I think it's a little badge of honor because so commonly we hear about multiple sclerosis tearing couples apart, but for us, it is what actually brought us together.
And I think it's one of those things where we both were in relationships where the MS tore the relationship apart. And so I think for people going through those challenges, we understand and we've been there and done that. I actually had been married allegedly for 6 years. I think that the marriage never really was solid, and I think my being diagnosed with MS really expedited the inevitable.
Yes, and I was in relationships, but they were never serious. And my MS, I always kept that, it always was hanging over any relationships I was in. Because I thought, of course I'm going to get worse, and this boyfriend at the time, he wouldn't be able to handle it. And so I stopped looking. And of course, it's Murphy's Law. When you stop looking, that's when you find the right thing. Or Murphy's Law that I subscribe to. I don't know if everyone else does. But I think, I stopped looking, and that's when I found Dan.
And I think that's what, a lot of times when people celebrate couples celebrate 50 years of marriage, or a person turns 100 years, there's always a question, well, what's the keys to success? What's helped you live for 100 years? What's helped you and your wife, your husband, stay married for 50 years? I understand that 12 years does not 50 years make, but at the same time, as we talk about how MS can interfere with and challenge relationships, we feel that like for 12 years, we have some insights and keys to help you, whether obviously not a lot of couples both have multiple sclerosis, but I mean for the number of couples where MS is a part of this relationship, I think that what we have found works for us is applicable to...
I mean, everyone is going through something. perhaps both spouses don't have multiple sclerosis. One spouse has MS and the other has diabetes, or two perfectly healthy couple, members of the couple. Our keys that have worked for us really have been the key to our survival has been communication, and it's really helped us that we have good communication with each other from the beginning of when we met. Because I remember when Dan and I met, we met at an MS Society event, 15 years ago, and he was straight up with me that he had been in a relationship, and we were pretty serious straight from the beginning. And of course I had that fear in my head, is this a rebound? Is this simply because Dan's ending his relationship with his wife? But he communicated with me that his marriage had been...
Our marriage had pretty well been over for at least 2 years, and I think it was just we were going through the motions, and so I was ready to move on, because I'd put my fight into the relationship, and I think just meeting Jennifer, the reality is I've never known Jennifer to walk. She'd always been in a wheelchair.
And so I've had that, I had that fear about Dan and rebound. And then I had that concern, and I'm sure he had his concern about would we be able to make this work with us both having multiple sclerosis and me being in the wheelchair. So honesty, he had to tell me his fear and I had to tell him mine. And so we had to communicate that, and that really helped. And then the first day I met him, he admitted, or he would proudly said, I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen fan and I like baseball. And if you could see me right now, you would see that I rolled my eyes because I was like, ugh, Springsteen and baseball. But now I've seen Springsteen in concert several times, and for our honeymoon...
Nine times to be exact.
Thank you, babe. And for our honeymoon, we went and saw the Boston Red Sox play the Toronto
Blue Jays.
Thanks. He looked at me with a look of how could you forget that, Jennifer? But we went because that is something that's important to my husband, that he likes Springsteen and he likes baseball. And so part of that is that understanding and communication. I think my husband is pretty darn awesome. So if he thinks something like Bruce Springsteen and baseball is awesome, there's got to be something that I need to open my eyes to.
Well, and I think that's where you're talking about the communication. The big key with the communication is you both always need to be 100% honest with each other. I think that when with that honesty, it does away with any questioning, double.
And we've talked about this before. We've talked about honesty, but you don't want to be honest to the point that you hurt each other's feelings. I'm not going to ever say to Dan, baseball is stupid and I think it's awful. If I didn't like it, I would just say, I don't really care for it. Let's watch a football game instead, or, let's go to see the movies or something. But I knew how much he liked it and what a game he thought that it was. So I'm going to keep my eyes open to it. And I'm an animal lover, and Dan certainly likes animals. But I don't know if you were as passionate before me as you are now.
Well, no, because I think, obviously, yeah, I've had pets. I love animals. You support the Humane Society, things like that. But animals are so near and dear to Jennifer's heart that you take a greater interest in it. And
I love my puppies and kitties. They make me happy. And, as far as honesty... And I don't want to say that I replace children with puppies and kitties. But Dan and I, from the beginning, we were very honest that having kids, we were in our I was 30 when we got married.
Dan was by his mid-30s by the time we got married.
But, we could have had children, but we knew that would be really, really difficult, especially with us both living with MS. And I know that other couples do it, and bless you that you do. And I'm sure that can be taxing, but 100% worth it. But being honest that, a lot of the responsibility would fall on Dan's shoulders. So we made a conscious choice to not have children.
And that's where I think just the empathy and putting yourselves in the shoes of the other person in the relationship is so key and so critical, because for as far as children, did I want children? At one point in time, yeah, I thought kids would be fine. But then once Jennifer and I met, we got married, and well, even before we got married, you have these conversations. That's a lot of responsibility, and I don't know as though Jennifer, you weren't like overly.
I wasn't. I didn't have that maternal clock that was ticking, ticking, ticking. Certainly, I love being not a great aunt, but being an awesome aunt to my nieces and my nephew, and again having animals and pets. That seems to fill that void, if you want to call it a void, that's left by the fact that we don't have kids. And I know that if we had children, that would be a lot of responsibility on Dan's shoulders, and it would just take a lot out of our marriage. And so being open and communicating, that helped.
I think it was just,
and continues to help, because you always have to kind of revisit the communications and the subjects.
well, and it's just knowing what's there. I mean, because there's times where on the surface, if you heard conversations, or I know that was one of the biggest challenges for us early on, and this is where, for you as somebody living with MS, talking with your caregiver, making sure, knowing where that person is coming from, because there's times where I'm helping Jennifer, like in transfers and whatnot, where I get frustrated. And
it's a little scary.
And I do, you drop F-bombs and everything. I mean, it's just in the sense that when we were first married and something like that happened. Well, it was so frustrating, and I think Jennifer, it was very, very early in our married relationship. She had been living with her parents. She came up here. We're married, and probably within the first couple weeks, there was just a moment where the challenge, and it was so difficult, and I got mad, and it was just like, it was a sense not mad at Jennifer. It's just like you.
But Jennifer didn't know that. I really thought Dan was angry with me. And he wasn't angry with me, and even 12 years into marriage, it still happens occasionally, where he gets mad at this stupid disease, and I'm the vessel of that stupid disease. So when he gets angry, I have to realize the anger isn't directed at me. It's directed at the disease.
It's directed at the disease. It's directed at, internally, because I think there's a point where sometimes caregivers, we feel like we have like an S on our chest, Superman, or W for Wonder Woman, whatever, where you think that this should be easy, and when it's not easy, you get frustrated, because then I'm very hard on myself that, I should be able to do this, and it wasn't happening, and so then you get frustrated, I think. But it's that communication and the empathy, where Jennifer puts herself in my shoes to say, okay, this is why he's upset. But then likewise, I have to look and say, Jennifer then is scared or hurt because she thinks I'm mad at her. But it's that honest, open lines of communication. And again, this is where these types of things, you don't have to have MS in your relationship for these to be just critical relationship things to think about. And it's not, and I think the other thing is, never be judgmental.
No, it's not the time. When you're in, I remember vividly that situation. We had only been married maybe a few months, and I thought, oh my goodness, I think I had fallen on the floor when Dan was transferring me. And I remember laying in the bathroom, because if you have MS and you're going to be transferred and you're going to fall, 9 times out of 10 it'll happen in the bathroom. I hope you all understand what I'm talking about. And I just remember laying on the bathroom floor saying, "You probably want a divorce, don't you?" And just that look of hurt on Dan's face, like, "Are you serious?" But it just seemed to be too much. And now I've fallen several times, and he's had his moments where we know that this disease is not going to break our marriage. It's not going to ruin it. It may make a bump in the road, but it's not going to end it. But you have to communicate that, and I have to be strong enough to have faith and confidence in our marriage. And I've mentioned Weight Watchers several times on this program these past 7 episodes. I'm continuing to try and lose weight because I know it'll make the transfers a little easier. And Dan continues to do push-ups and try and strengthen himself, because we both know that we're not getting any younger, and we're certainly not getting less multiple sclerosis as the day goes by. So we have to continue working on strengthening ourselves.
And I think that's where in these relationships you both need to be strong. It's like you don't put everything on the caregiver or the receiver. It's like, there's times where work is challenging for me. I mean, to go to work every day, I mean, there's days where I'm just like, I'm spent and stuff, but I know that I have to stay strong for this, because that's the income we need. This is how we survive. And it's just like, I have to stay strong for Jennifer, but I also know I have to pace myself that way so that I do have the physical strength to help her at night.
And we both have to be all in, and we have to be a team. And if Dan is going to work 40 hours a week, I have to do my part to make this marriage work and to make this household run. And that is one thing, we are a team. And at times it can almost seem, that Dan's doing more in the team, or I'm not carrying my weight. But everything I do to help him and vice versa, it works for the team.
And I think that's where it's easy for it's easy to start thinking, oh, I'm not doing as much as I should, or somebody's always doing more. But it's just the reality. It's just like, take a step back and look at everything that you are doing. I think that's where, when we talk caregiving relationships, everyone thinks, if Jennifer's in the wheelchair, I'm the caregiver. Well, sometimes, but I mean, there's other times where she's carrying all the weight. I mean, I don't go to the grocery store, and that's not a
No, it's just that I don't go to work, but I can go to the grocery store so that Dan doesn't have to. And I think that that's how our team works, is we find out what we each can do. I mean, my MS has progressed, certainly some, as has Dan. In 12 years we're older, and the MS has progressed, but I'm trying to continue to stay motivated and keep strong. And right now, I'm a little weaker, so I am going to occupational therapy. I'm trying to do my exercises. I'm sleeping with a hand brace to keep my hand open, which is annoying, but it's better to have a hand brace on at night and be able to use my hand in the morning than to just ignore it and think it'll get better on its own. And I'm going to see my neurologist in October, and I'm going to stay on top of my health, because that is a key component of the team.
And I think and that's where at times, to be a vital member of the team, sometimes you have to be selfish and look out for yourself and take care of yourself.
But it's not selfish, because it actually makes the team function better. And Dan, as he mentioned, he works. And I'm very fortunate that we live close to his office, and he comes home to have lunch with me. And he used to come home 5 days of the week, but now I realize he needs he needs to have lunch with his coworkers or he needs to stay at the office. So he may not come home every day of the week, and I'm okay with that because it works. It conserves his energy. And as Weight Watchers, as we talked about, he used to always take me to my meeting Saturday morning, but he never got to sleep in, which MS and fatigue. To not have to take me to that meeting Saturday morning, I can go with my caregiver during the week. That really gives him it gives him a day, because he didn't have one to sleep in or to have some time to himself. So you just have to move and adjust. You're always combating the disease and trying to tweak your relationship or your teamwork all the time to make it stronger and function better.
And so then just looking at this, because 12 years ago, did you, Jennifer, did you ever think that you'd be at this point 12 years later where marriage were you scared? Did it ever make you nervous? Like when I asked you to marry me, did you ever stop to think, I don't know, Dan's got the MS, he could get worse? What made you so confident that this could happen?
Because I never thought about it, which is silly. Certainly the reality of Dan getting worse could happen. But if you didn't have multiple sclerosis, and I didn't have multiple sclerosis, normal couples, things happen, and you can't live in fear, What if Dan got hit by a car tomorrow? Or what if I got run over by a bus? You just can't live in fear. And maybe that's an overconfident statement, but I know he's being proactive and trying to take the best care of himself to keep Team Digman rolling. But what about you, babe? Were you scared marrying a woman in a wheelchair?
When the day, well, you knew that I fell in love.
Stop stammering.
I fell in love with you the day we met, and you were in a wheelchair, and I think that's, but yeah, when it comes to questioning the commitment, the longevity, the responsibility that was going to be on my shoulders as a caregiver for someone who uses a wheelchair. Meanwhile, I'm living with the same disease, and that could just turn on me in an instant, and I could become worse. I think there was a lot of soul searching, praying, talking to God, looking.
Our faith is very important.
Faith is very strong, and I think, then there were several trips back to Iowa to see family where I'm, contemplating this, and I think I'm never afraid, and I think it's that, there's the potential, but everything, like you said, that could happen in any relationship. And I think it was just having the confidence. I think it's the confidence in, again, the team, because I was going into this and I knew I was not going to be in it alone. And like you talked earlier, you have to be all in, and it's like the key is the relationship, and how do we keep the relationship moving forward and strong.
It's really important with the relationship that I don't just see Dan as my caregiver, and Dan doesn't just see me as the person he takes care of. He is my husband, and I am his wife first and foremost. Anybody could be my caregiver. Well, not anybody, because there are some people that just can't. But that I digress. But there's only one person that I want to be my husband. And that's what I have to remember. And he has to know that I chose him and I decided to spend the rest of my life with him, God willing.
Well, and I think that's, one of the things that I've always, bring back to Jennifer and stuff, as far as like when she asks, do you get tired of doing this, or you're always doing blank to help me? And it's just the reality that, I always say chivalry is not dead. I think that, what I do for her as a quote caregiver, that's something I would do just because I love her, and and it's the chivalry. It's like You need me to get you. You want to fill up your water glass? It's like, babe, I'm up. I can go do it. Yes, I realize you can do it too, but I'm doing this because I love you. And I think that's where, if you, and even Jennifer, she's, if I had a tailgate, a football tailgate with my office mates. I mean, Jennifer was there too, but I needed hamburgers for my contribution to the tailgate. So she had to drop everything, a day and just go up. She and her caregiver had to go to the store to buy hamburgers for my tailgate. And it's just like, I didn't feel like she was doing it and it was an annoyance. It was like, that's what she was doing as my caregiver to help me.
But as Dan mentioned, we're pretty fortunate that we have a team. We have really strong support from our family and our friends. And I think that makes the marriage, we're pretty obviously strong and totally in love with each other. Stop rolling your eyes if you're my brother.
Throwing up in your mouth and everything.
If you're my brother listening to this. But we do have a really strong family and support behind us that makes this marriage work. So I hope that you picked up some tips from us about the importance of communication and empathy and teamwork. And it's important to stay in the game to make marriage or a relationship work, either if with your spouse or your caregiver, because that is how you can best take it to multiple sclerosis. Say, take that MS, I'm happy. You're not going to stop me from that.
And that's the big thing. And I think that's where, we have 12 years of marriage behind us and the key, and we both have MS. And I think that's just where we wish you the best in staying strong in your relationships. And then just remember too that the team goes beyond just the two of you. You have a team of friends, doctors, physicians, family to help you all stay strong. So thank you again for taking the time to listen to us today. We wish you the best as you move forward in your relationships and into the fall. And we want to thank MS&Me Radio Network again for allowing us to come and share our stories and perspectives with you. And we also want to thank Blue Giraffe Kid for composing this theme music for our show.
A couple takes on MS.
Find us online at danandjenniferdigman.com or DanJenDig on Twitter, and find us on Instagram as well. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.